from a very, very long break. Sorry, I had a bunch of family stuff going on for over a year, some pretty intense stuff, and we're back. So everything's back in motion. So the great debut of late 2023 into the 2024 winter steelhead season. We're going to do Shanked Intruder, but we are going to be tying with some very different materials that a lot of people aren't aware of capabilities of what other materials will do. So this is an aqua shank return eye, middle size. I think it's like a 41 mil. Ultra rig. I love the ultra rig. It's no secret. I think it's a phenomenal way of mounting your rear hook. So you've got your Power Pro. I've slid the tubing over it. We're going to loop on our hook. Now hooks, everybody's got a different opinion on hooks. You know, I think there's a million ways to lose a fish, and I think there's a million ways to not lose fish. So my suggestion with hooks is just go with what you feel you have the most confidence in. There's a lot of people that love these aqua talons. There's people that don't. There's people that love standard octopus hooks. There's people that don't. The Gamakatsu Big River bait, you know, everybody's got their different opinions on hooks. I would say just use the one you have confidence in. There's really no right or wrong answer here. Just based on experience, I've found that they all, I can't honestly tell you, you know, the more I think about it, the more it's like, man, I can lose a steelhead. You know, I've lost so many steelhead in my life, you know, it's like, gosh, I can't always chalk it up to the hook, you know. I mean, there's a million things that happen, and as soon as the fish jumps, you're on borrowed time anyway. So just go with your gut, go with what you've had good experience in, and then just use that hook. I will say personally, I like thinner wire hooks. I know a lot of people love the owners, but I don't like the heavy wire of the owner, so I tend to go with a little thinner wire hook just for better penetration and faster penetration. So I'm going to tie in the ultra rig here back towards the end, and we're going to wrap her all the way up, and then this little vice pawn will save your fingers. This little thing's probably one of the coolest inventions that took so long to come to market. This little loon vice pawn. It's like the little things, right? Like, why did this thing take 30 years to come out? But I'm glad we have it now. So I'm going to grab my Power Pro, put it through the eye of the hook. That'll kind of tame it down too. So as I wrap up, it's contained, and then I'm going to wrap them back underneath and really get a solid mount on this. As far as construction of the fly, any shanked fly, making sure that Power Pro stays put, this is the most important part of this entire fly. Everything else is subject to this hook not pulling out. So regardless of whatever hook you pick, if that Power Pro slides out, it doesn't even matter anyway. So make sure you double back this Power Pro and go through the eye and make sure that thing's just ultra secure. Now I'm going to flip over the shank, put you back in there, throw on my eyes since we're doing standard intruder stuff here, and then what I like to do to make sure these things never roll is put a little dab of super glue, waterproof super glue, Zap-A-Gap, you know, something like that. Throw a dab down and then put it on my thread a little bit, and that way it's glued. Not only is it glued to the shank, but it's glued all around the shank with the super glue on the thread. Figure eight it. When you wrap it around, it tightens up your figure eight and just locks that thing in. Now this thing will not spin. Flip it back, and now we can start our fly. Stay put for me, please. Alright. Standard dubbing bump Nothing fancy here. I'm gonna tie this pink fly, so I'm gonna use pink dubbing here. You can do chartreuse, actually a little chartreuse tag. Why don't we do that? That would look really good on here. I like little chartreuse tags on my pink flies. Alright, back with some chartreuse dubbing. Sorry I had to find it. Wasn't part of the scheduled programming, but it'll look better. And I'm not going to do a dubbing loop on this one. I want this one kind of packed in tight. These little balls, prop balls. I'm going to pack this on there really good. I might do a little more. This isn't like the largest dubbing profile, this particular stuff. You can use ice dub, I mean whatever, just whatever you like. And I didn't get that one very tight, so we will fix that. Alright. So, this is a common issue with spiky dubbings. This thing right here, you can just pull it off. These little short fibered synthetic dubbings, they really don't like to stick on thread that well. So thinner is better. Always thinner is better. Pull it back, wrap. Cool. Bam, done. Got it. I'm going to throw on a dubbing loop here. I'm going to take it, I just wrap it over the vice pawn and then just throw the dubbing spinner on it just to keep it open. So I'm just taking the loop around the vice pawn, throw my dubbing spinner down, and that just keeps it open, and so I can just deal with it. The composite loop I'm going to do is just some pink synthetic dubbing. Ice dub will work. Laser dub really won't work, but all the Senyos, fusion dubbing will work good. That SSS dubbing works good, so I'm just going to throw some dubbing down. The chromatic brush, this thing's like, looks like it's been through the washing machine. If you don't store them in the bag and store them like nice, they get ratty, so I'm going to have to, this is pretty common too. If they just get left around, they get pretty ratty, so combing it out here. And we can kind of get it back. And so I'm going to grab it and then cut it right off that stainless wire. Bam. And this loop is going to be short, really short. And then if you want to add some flash, you can. So I'll probably add some of this burgundy angel hair. I'm just going to pull out a little bit like that. This stuff's really long, so I'll fold it in half. So now I've doubled it. I'm going to fold it in half again. Now I've quadrupled it. And I can just cut off the ends to any length I desire. Now I've got all separate fibers. I'm going to spread that in the loop. And so here's my composite loop. Pop her in. And now with the point of your scissors or your bodkin or whatever, you can just kind of spread some stuff around. I like stabbing it through. That angel hair got a little clumpy, so I'm going to bring it down. Okay, something along those lines, spin it up. And as you can see, we've got an absolute bird's nest of a mess, but once we comb it out, these little EP finger brushes work amazingly well for this. And this is all stuff you've seen in videos before. We're not going to go over like the composite loop entirely just because we've got videos out there explaining composite loops in detail. So if you search that, you'll see in detail the composite loop and the construction of that. So spin that up. Alright, beautiful. We can give her a comb out here. That'll show us kind of how thin this actually is, which is nice, which is what I'm after. And now for the one of the new things. So I'm going to throw some water on this just to get this all pinned back. What the water will do in this situation is just get it out of my way. So the composite loop, my next loop, and I don't think it's, whatever loop it is, I don't think it's called a composite loop because it's not like that involved, but the water will just help keep this from getting captured in my next dubbing loop. So as far as effect goes, we can spin, in a dubbing loop you can spin anything you want. I mean, like, world's your oyster, right? You can really just throw anything in a dubbing loop, and we've covered that. So what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to actually spin up a little bit of Flashaboo. And the reason this becomes important rather than just tying it in is I'm using like 140 denier. 140 seems to really do dubbing loops well. It doesn't, your thread doesn't break. You know, you can use 6/0, you can use, you know, thinner threads. You just really got to be careful on how many spins you make, right? Like how many revolutions. And what really sucks is when you spin it, when you take all this material and you put it in a composite loop and you spin it up, if you're using too thin of a thread, it's just going to break on you. And then not only have you wasted material, you've wasted time, maybe you've got to start the whole thing over again. And if you've got a loop that you really like, that you've worked on, and you're like, oh man, this thing's perfect, you know, you lose that. And so a lot of these intruder type flies, you know, you don't even know if it's going to be a fly you like until you're close to the end. And that's part of the issue with these, is they don't really look, you don't even know, like at this point, I don't even know if I'm going to like this fly, if I'm going to like the proportions and all that, right? Like, you really don't know till you get kind of that second stage and things start coming together. So if you lose a good one, you know, one that you're happy with, it sucks because the next one you put in might not be as good. You notice the cut just now, I screwed up really bad and my fingers were like sticky with dubbing wax or something. I don't know if I touched something on the table, maybe like a little UV that spilled, and I just like destroyed the whole next step. So when we're working with certain materials, it's important that your hands are clean. Any kind of residue of glue or anything left on the table will surely hurt you. So I'm going to grab some Flashaboo. And this is one of those materials, if your hands, if you got your fingers in something, you know, I think I got a little UV on the vice base here, and it just, everything stuck to my fingers and pulled out of the loop. So I've got some Flashaboo. I took a little bit, doubled it over. Now I've got a good length that I like. And this stuff's awesome because it spins up. It spins up really good, provided that you make it thin enough. So I'm going to measure this against my hook. The rear length, I like that. Put your finger, see, damn it, look at that. See what happened? I don't know what I got, but I think this will still work. We'll just do 50-50. So put your finger underneath it. And we'll spin her up. Go slow at first with this Flashaboo. When you're spinning Flashaboo, you want to go real slow. Just get it in there. You're going to see all these loops for where it's pinned down on itself. Just go through and lightly pull them out. Careful not to pull the Flashaboo out of the dubbing loop. Just look for the loops. We're going to do it again, spin it again. And then we're going to get more loops, so it just takes a little time to pick through this. Cool, that looks good. Water and Flashaboo are beautiful together. If this thing's going all over the place and rats nesting on you, water will just pin this back. I'll show you. Bam, it just pins it back to where it is no longer fighting you. I'm going to throw this around. like that, and tie off. I'm going to tie this long. See how far I've got this up? What I'm trying to do, now I can make tight wraps. What I'm trying to do is not just throw all the wraps in one spot. I'm going to try to taper out this big thread dam we got here the best I can. Comb this through real lightly if you're using, I don't know where my other comb is, I got a mess going on my table here, but this thing will work as long as you just go light. Alright, that looks good. Second new material, this is dyed Peacock eye. We've got it in a few different colors. I'm going to use this in place of ostrich. So I'm just going to grab a little chunk. Alright, well, didn't want you anyway. Alright. We're going to throw it on either side. This stuff has a natural curvature to it, and so that's what I was fighting, is just the natural curvature of the feather. I'm going to try to get it to curve in, and that's purely aesthetics. That has nothing to do with the action of the fly. You can, once you get this thing in a swing, the water's going to just push it back, and so this is honestly just because I want it to look a certain way. That's it. Okay, water those down. We can tie this off and wrap back. Alright, bam. So we got kind of a cool little color combo thing going on. You know, like, I don't know, it just looks nice, right? We got some pinks, we got some burgundies, and just different color layers, making a good looking fly here. For the body, you can use flat braid, you can use tinsel. I mean, this is all normal Intruder stuff. You've seen all these videos. I'm just going to use this flat mylar pearl. I'm going to tie it in up top here. Now, the difference in thread is going to be an issue for this stuff, like actually staying, right? So what I like to do is I'm going to throw a little bit of zap down, not much, just a tiny bit, and then when I wrap, oh, don't you do it, then when I wrap, that zap is going to grab this tinsel and not allow it to slide down, and it's going to create a permanent solution to that persistent problem. And I'm going to throw a little bit more water on here because that flashaboo is becoming a persistent problem. Alright, so now here's always the test, right? So this is why we want the zap going back, forward. I want that to stick, and that's exactly what it does. Oh, cut it close on that one, didn't I? Alright. And this is far from perfect. You see I got a little bump in there. Whatever. You can, if you're so inclined, UV glue this. We can do it real quick, and that will help level it out. Okay, good. When I UV glue my bodies, I really like the fluorescing loon. The fluorescing loon flow just makes this thing bright as hell. It really brightens up the fly. And again, the whole fluorescent and UV stuff, it's kind of out to lunch as far as actual proof. We have no real proof whether it works better or not. We've got our hunches and we've got our own experiences, and so that is steelheading, right? Like, there's really no absolutes, and so wherever you're tying, whenever you're tying, if you've got something that you have confidence in, if you're somebody who really believes in UV and fluorescent, then roll it. Everything everything you put into this fly you want to be a believer in, and so based on your experience, that's where all this comes from. And if you don't have much experience catching steelhead, if you're kind of new or whatever, you haven't caught many fish, it is perfectly normal and good to draw on other people's experiences until you get your own. So my experience is I like fluorescent colors. I'm a little bit on the fence with UV. I don't know if UV matters that much, but I do like fluorescent colors, especially in the wintertime. And having that fluorescent UV in the middle, I think, in my brain, the middle will kind of glow through the materials, and that's real attractive to me. So that's that spiel. I'm going to do another composite loop up here. So we're rolling that same pink dubbing. And what I'm doing here is I just grab it out of the package and I just separate it and try to get them all pointed the same length or same direction. Grabbing, pulling, and that keeps it from clumping, and then I can actually like spread this out and it makes a nice base. So I'm putting that down first. We're going to throw in our chromatic brush again. I love these brushes. They're a little bit spendy going in, but you get a ton of material. Going in sucks. They're expensive going in, but you get a lot of them, and they'll last a lot. I mean, a ton of flies. These chromatic brushes really go a long ways. Ideally, they would probably give you half as much, and give you half as much for half the price, and then you know it'd be easier to get a lot of different colors that way. But that's not what they do. Okay, more angel hair. Again, I'm just going to grab some, double it over, quadruple it. Bam. I'm going to cut the ends to the length I like. We've got something like that. We've got a good 50-50 split on that loop. One thing I would say on this front loop, it's very, very easy to overdress these front loops. I've done it a million times where you want something a little bit more dramatic up front than you do in the rear. Be very careful with that, because it's easy to just clump this whole front station up and really overdress it. So just be wary of that. Now on this one, I am going to throw my peacock in this loop. I'm just going to grab this eye here, and we're just going to roll like that much. Get a measurement right on where I kind of want to be with it, something around that. So I'll cut these. So that's going to be in the center of the loop. This should be right where I want it. And then some flashaboo. So I'm going thin on both to make sure I don't overdress this front station. So I'm going thin on the flashaboo, and I'm going thin on the peacock. You're hearing munching in the background. That is Yona chewing her bone, being a good girl. Okay, that's our length right here. So I'm going to remember that mark. Throw that down. All right, loop is built. I'm going to run, or my composite structure's built. I'm going to roll the dubbing loop here. Put it over the vice pawn. Throw this in here. Here's my composite loop. Looks like a mess, and it surely is at the moment. I'm going to pop it in the dubbing loop. Make sure I get my proportions where I want them. And then as soon as you grab it, you pinch everything. So I'm just going to spread it back to where I had it in my brain, where I wanted it. Okay, we're going to spin her up. And take that needle, get these loops out. Right now I'm only worried about the Flashaboo. I'm not worried about anything else. If I go too hard on something that's barely spun up like this, I'm just going to pull out the material. The dubbing will be fine, the Peacock will be fine, the Flashaboo will not. And so you just want to make sure you keep this Flashaboo picked out. I'm going to do one more spin just to really get it tight in there. Okay, we're all separated, so now I can roll my spiky finger brush here and get as much of that dubbing out as possible. I want that dubbing working towards the movement, the flow, and the overall bump of material. Alright, we're looking good. Again, water's our best friend in this situation. It just kind of tames everything. Throw a little bit more on here. Wrap it up. Tie it off. Now we need a finishing feather. You don't have to, but I like a finishing feather. I'm just going to roll marabou, but very sparse. Very sparse. Let me grab some. Alright, some bubblegum pink. I'm only going to give myself a couple turns of this. I don't want it overpowered. Think of marabou as like a pungent flavor in a dish. Something, you know, that's just easy to overdo. Really nice in small doses, but easy to overdo. So that's how you want to think of marabou on these flies. So this is only going to be like 2 or 3 turns. Okay, this is the part of your day. Look at that. She's looking good. This is the part of your day where you've got to pick. Are you going to do schlappen, guinea, something? I like a little stiffer feather here to help push against water current. Schlappen's usually what I go with. I just like the thin stems. Guinea can fold. You get a couple guinea feathers per pack that are primo, and then the rest you're just kind of fighting. It wants to fold down on your feather. The stems are too thick a lot of times. They make great collars for hair wings and stuff. You just got to be a little careful on your intruders. I love silver pheasant. I don't know if I've got any. Alright, cool, I got some. Silver pheasant is one of my favorite materials on the planet. I love silver pheasant. It has been a nightmare to get silver pheasant. So, natural has been available, but the colors have not. So, luckily I've got some leftover pink, but if you want to roll natural, a natural would look really good on a fly like this too. Natural silver pheasant, and natural being black and white, will kind of accent any color pattern, you know, any color scheme out there. So don't be afraid to use natural. This was the first thing, you know, I grabbed. And they're gonna fight me Boy, today's just a day of feathers fighting, isn't it? Alright. I'm just going to get a turn out of that. Do the 4 wraps, and then I'm going to go up to the eye. Separate it a little bit. Cool. Now, for a wing, we must decide. You can do ostrich, you can do hackle fibers, you know, million options. I'm just going to roll some grizzly tips. I'm going to measure them out. That looks to be about right there. One of these has a broken tip. I am not in a position right now to worry about that because I'm low on my... I got to pick up another saddle here at some point fairly quickly. I think I just grabbed the last 2 feathers of this size range in there, so it is what it is. Put them through the eye. I like to make like 3 wraps, and then you can position them. And once you have them how you want them, as far as like angle of the dangle, I'm going to call that good enough. Make one more real tight wrap, fold these feathers down, and then double back them over. Make a couple whip finishes. Clip, clip. Bring it all forward. Toothbrush helps. Bring it all forward and then bring it all back. That separates it all, gets it all fluffed out, looking good. And then last step, I should have worked on that one a little harder, but it will make do. Last step, I'll throw this fluorescing UV all over the top here. I just clog the eye, so you can just take anything you got laying around, like this is a piece of that Peacock, and just run it through before you cure it. If you cure it without the eye clear, it will not work out in your favor. Cure that, and I'll flip it over and cure the bottom. Just to give a good encasing of glue. Zap-A-Gap will work. The only reason I'm not using Zap is Zap has a tendency to creep into your feathers. It just spreads, right? So you got to really be careful when you're using Zap-A-Gap on marabous and stuff like that, because if you use it on the head, it'll spread back. Okay, we're going to pull this out. Our little nubbin here, we're going to pop the Ultra Rig over that, tighten her all up, flip the hook up, and we have our finished fly. Reason the reason for the Peacock, and reason for the Peacock instead of ostrich. The Peacock is really thin, You could use Rhea if you have Rhea. Really thin ostrich. The problem with thin ostrich is it doesn't stay thin. You'll tie it in thin, but once it gets wet, it'll turn into like regular poofy ostrich. And so I want something that's going to stay very skinny and not impede movement of the Flashabou. The Flashabou and the Flash is kind of the main event and the main draw. You could just do it with all Flashabou. We've done that lots. I just like the Peacock in place because it gives a little bit more substance, and I do like fishing with, you know, feathers, and it makes the fly have some depth. Rhea, if you can find Rhea, they stopped importing it a couple years ago. It's been really tough to find, but Rhea would work fine. This Peacock works great as a substitute. I'm quickly becoming a huge fan, and it's super, super durable. That's another good thing about it. In really cold weather, it holds. It won't break on you. But I want the Flashabou to move around, and I do like the depth of color and the combo of some feathers. So that's why I chose the Peacock with the Flashabou instead of ostrich. You can use ostrich, but ostrich gets kind of fat and it will impede movement. So this just will stay skinny and let everything kind of flow as it needs to flow. So that's it. Cool little fly. Sinks fast. I gotta say, easy to cast, sinks fast, as easy as Intruders can be to cast. Yeah, awesome little fly. It'll work good for you this winter. Have fun out there. Hope to see you out there.